The name sounds
She's
familiar.
the black lady who won the Oscar for The Help.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah,
that.
she's going to be the one, and they are taking Remington Steele and rebooting Remington Steele into a half-hour comedy.
Oh, that's disappointing.
Yeah, because it wasn't a comedy.
So, a middle-aged black woman in Maine.
They might change it to Atlanta.
I'm just saying, do you remember
have
after the
better
last
murders.
election, one of the RNC guys in Maine came out and said, there were black people who voted in this town, and I've never seen a black person in this town. Obama's stealing the election. And he had to quit, of course, but he's like, well, I'm just saying, how come I've never seen a black person in town? No, maybe because you have that sort of attitude about black people. Maybe black people are smart and know not to be around your ass.
I'm certainly not going to vote for him. So, yeah.
Did you hear what Obama said today?
Mm-mm.
Two things. Very important, I think. The first thing was, he came out and said, pot is no more dangerous than booze.
Yay!
He gave he was at some sort of interview. He was on the Huffington Post. He said, well, everybody knows, it's pretty well documented that I smoke pot, and I smoked a lot of it. But I do believe that it's a vice, just like cigarettes that I smoked for a long time, and just got rid of recently. And
it's pretty good impersonation.
So it's a vice, but it's no more dangerous than booze or the cigarettes. But it's
So the global
You're not
game
supposed
jam,
to touch my toys.
The global game jam is happening. That's where all over the world people get together and they make a video game in 48 hours based on a theme, and it's happening at the Entertainment Technology Center, and I'm on the board of the Pittsburgh chapter of the International Game Developers Association, so we're the ones doing it. We're
So you'll have a chance to ruin this too.
Yeah. And it was, who can we get as a celebrity guest judge this year? And we're having these conversations right around November. And I was like, we should ask Bill Peduto. He just won the election, and he's a hip guy. Let's ask him. So I sent this letter inviting him to be our guest judge, and I didn't hear anything. And then this week I'm sitting at my desk, and I get this phone call from the mayor's office. So we've got Mayor Bill Peduto to come in and play all the video games.
Oh, that's awesome.
well, right on.
I like that guy, Bill Peduto.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah, right?
Pittsburgh, where shit happens. And that. Hello and welcome to a very special edition of the Nerd Exchange podcast. I am your moderator and resident brony, Tim Sedwick. And today we have a special panel on women in nerddom, exploring the very, very important issues of how to stop being jerks to girls. That's, I know, a very technical thing, but it's okay, guys. You can laugh. Just so you know, I say stupid things on purpose.
Oh my god.
So that people laugh.
I just love the fact that all of us are sitting here able to legitimately laugh silently.
Yeah. I think they turned a brand new color of red. No, I wish we had this on film, because all of you had your heads down and to the right, staring at the ground, trying not to audibly laugh. So anyway, as you can see, it's very serious. I'm a very dour and serious man. With us today we have professional photographer, expert cosplayer in my opinion, and a fan of anything British. So you're saying from Downton Abbey to Doctor Who, you don't care if they talk funny, you're in.
If I could talk like that, we'd have a whole different set of problems, trust me.
Yes, right, actually. One might suppose, if one were to suppose was such a thing, which one really wouldn't suppose would one, so one would suppose not.
You know, I actually have this issue where the longer I'm talking to somebody who has an accent, my voice adopts the accent, which is incredibly awkward in customer service.
So, please welcome Laurie Comfort.
Yeah, Volt, thank you very much for having me.
Also, we have the proprietrix love that word, of Rickert and Beagle Bookstore in
Dormont.
Pennsylvania. Also the PR director of the Last Unicorn film, correct? And a huge Star Trek fan in her own right, Chris Rickert. Chris, say a few things so people know what your voice sounds like.
Hi, this is me. I own a bookstore.
So what do you collect? Books, you idiot.
Books and Star Trek and unicorn stuff and Nightmare
Also-
Before Christmas stuff.
We have video game designer for Shell Games here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The 2013 recipient of the Women in Gaming Rising Star Award. And who is a big fan of historical piracy and Nightmare Before Christmas. And I want to see that cosplay put together. You have 5 minutes. Do it! And of course, as always, we have the producer and pretty much director of the Nerd Exchange podcast, the person who makes me sound as least like an idiot as humanly possible, up for early sainthoods, Julia Englert.
No amount of editing. There is no amount of editing that can do that.
And can you feel the love? So anyway, we're going to be talking about some women's issues in nerd culture. Next week, we are going to have my full review of my trip to Erie, Pennsylvania, where I saw Erie has a pretty cool nerd. They got a lot more stores than we do per capita. My favorite thus far is the Action Toy Man. There's a store called Action Toy Man. And you walk in and it's literally every single kind of action figure from like 1950 to today. And then downstairs, they got comic books that are all $1. Well, mostly all $1. And then they just rented the upstairs, which is going to be the private lounge, where people can actually buy memberships to just hang out at the toy store. Almost makes me want to move to Erie, but not quite. But we're going to have a full review of that next week. When Kyle's back with us and whatnot. But today, we will talk about... What shall we talk about?
You're the moderator.
Any concerns, any memorabilia.
Littering in.
I'm Joe Frank and my friends. Okay, there's one thing that, Julia, you said you wanted to discuss, which is the prevalence of mansplaining as opposed to fansplaining. So why don't you inform our listeners about that?
Well, honestly, I mean, we touched on the subject briefly the week whenever we sat down with Wayne Weiss, but then tangents happened, and we moved along very quickly before I could actually say anything I wanted to. But it was just... There is this certain thing that happens all the fucking time whenever you meet somebody who's into the same things you're into. Where it's like, there's always that moment where it could go either way. That moment where it's like, oh, cool, you like the same things I do. Let's talk about these same things we like. And then it's either going to be a wonderful conversation, or else it's going to pretty much evolve into being talked down to because, oh, well, you don't know this one obscure detail, so obviously you're just faking it, and I need to now tell you every detail of everything in its entire history. And it's so incredibly frustrating to have that. You know, if you're not on top of your game, if you do not know every fucking thing about it, all of a sudden you end up in a situation where it's hard to talk about the things that you enjoy in public because somebody's going to start teaching you everything you already know because you missed one fucking point.
And do you guys find that as well in the...
Yes.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Yes.
Very much so.
Yes.
See, as a man, you know what I would do? Other than punch them right in the nose?
I don't think I'd aim for the nose.
Well, I was being metaphorical, Laurie, but...
Sternum.
But,
They expect you to go for the gonads.
the first thing when I heard about this was, I don't know what this is, so obviously I do it. Like, I know, it's like, everybody has that asshole friend, and if you don't have an asshole friend, you're the asshole friend. Like, when I was like, I have no idea what this is. Oh, I must do this all the time, and obviously I do. But the thing is, most guys are so unused to females being into things the way they are that when you find someone who is, you almost want to check to see if they're really into it, So that's the whole, like, trying to get 40 years of history of something into 4 minutes to see if somebody knows it. So that a lot of times people are probably waiting for you to just kind of be like, no, hey, shut up. I know that already.
Well, it doesn't, like, I only started liking Doctor Who with Chris Eccleston, right? And just because I only started with the recent set of Doctor Who, that doesn't mean that I like Doctor Who any less than anybody else does. It means I just started into it later. But there are people who believe that, oh, well, if you haven't watched any of the old episodes, then you're not really a fan.
I think there's definitely a sense in geek culture that there are certain appropriate gateways to being into something. For example, people who say, well, I like Star Wars since the original Star Wars, and you're too young to know old Star Wars. Or a person who gets into a comic book character through the movie that came out, not the comic books. And I think that there's a perception that there are ways to be a geek, and there are these, like, fake ways to get into geekdom.
That happens with men, too, though. There was a male who, when I was starting this podcast, said to me on Facebook, but out loud, in front of God and everybody, that's bullshit. I'm 10 times the geek you are. And it's the same kind of thing, because, you, on a scale of 1 to 10, you only know 6 of something, and my knowledge goes to 11, therefore you're less than me. That happens male on male as well.
Cross-gender, yeah.
I think you do get a lot of, well, I have to prove something. And you're going to see a lot more of that generally in men anyways, because men are always out there trying to prove that they are faster, stronger, better. That's what they were raised on. That's what the geek culture told them to be. Mm-hmm. Faster, stronger, better. You have to be engineered. You have to be... So they have this mentality.
Bionic nerd.
Exactly. Yeah. But they have this mentality that, well, oh my God, you're a threat to what I know. So if I don't find a way to be better than you, I'm not worth anything. And females have always been, quote unquote, the weaker sex. So if they can't make us feel inferior, then what does that make them?
Right.
See, well, I remember I used to play a lot of the White Wolf games, Vampire the Masquerade, all that stuff. I remember I was with a group of friends at an after-hours club, and of course only I could get into a conversation about White Wolf games at an after-hours club. But we met this couple, some friends of mine. We met this couple, and tell us about your character. So I just did like a little 30-second thing about my character, and they were like, "That's it?" I'm like, what? And this woman went on to describe 900 years of her vampire character's life and unlife in such minute detail, which to me, metaphorically, is kind of like the guy you go, "Oh yeah, I like Marvel comics," and then you go like, "Well, what do you think of Peter Parker being a clone for all those years? Are you with it or not?" And people go, "Huh?" It's like, "Oh, okay, you're not real." She did that to me a lot, like, you don't really know how to play the game. But I'm not saying it's not more prevalent with men, because men just tend to be jerks the way they communicate things.
It's not even necessarily that it's more prevalent with men. Obviously, there's just certain psychological tendencies that are more common in the males to have that sort of, machismo about it. But the problem really is there are certain men out there that ruin it for the entire fucking log, where people can't sit there and fansplain. They can't sit there and gush about these things because, back whenever Magic the Gathering, whenever I was playing that every week, there were two specific guys there. Where it's like, I was working 15-hour days and then walking to the mall after work without even changing usually. And I'd be sitting there and I'd be playing and I'd be fucking exhausted. If I made one goddamn mistake, the rest of the game that I played with them would be, "Oh, you did that wrong. You don't know how to play. This is how you did it wrong. You did that, and you did this in this deck. You could do so much better with this deck." And it was just talking down. Like, not actually in any constructive way trying to help. It was just literally. And they would only do that with the girls. Every girl that played, if you made one stupid mistake, they would tell you how you're fucking dumb and don't know how to play their game and get the fuck out of my store.
I think you're also encountering I don't want to use the word threat because that's not right, but geekdom for the longest time was a male-dominated arena. heavily male dominated. If you were a geek girl, you were either generally seen as an outcast or you learned to keep it under the table. Now geeks have become, to quote Felicia Day, geeks have become chic. You know? We've become the ones that are cool. So women now feel able to be out there being, hey, this is what I am, this is what I do, this is what I like. And all of a sudden the people who have been in this hierarchy that understand where things should be don't know how to interact with this influx of girls who may not necessarily be as big a fan or may be a bigger fan. But it upsets the apple cart.
Well, that's the whole thing that I see online about quote-unquote fake geek girls. Let me tell you a little story about when I was younger. Back when literally the women that were in my life, that were in my circle, for the most part, would tolerate geeking and gushing and fansplaining and stuff like that. But they would tolerate it in the same way that men tolerate going shopping with their wives or girlfriends. 2 or 3 times a year, because you gotta, but you're not enjoying it. You're like, and you're kind of sitting in the corner with a bag going, Christ, when's this going to be over? I mean, the women in my circle, we were a very nerdy circle. We were very bohemian. We were very smoke pot all the time and write poetry and shit like that. But the women they may have watched Star Wars, but it wasn't because they were like, oh, yay, Star Wars. Like, oh, he wants to watch Star Wars. Okay, it's not that bad. You know what I mean? Like, I had friends who were heavily into, like, elves and unicorns and Lord of the Rings and stuff like that, but it didn't cross over. What's beautiful about nerd girls today, nerd women, I should say, with a Y, is that there is so much cross-mogenation when it comes to that thing. You know what I mean? The fact that you can have a female who's like, yeah, I like video games, I like manga, and I like Indiana Jones movies, or whatever. Like historical piracy and Nightmare Before Christmas. Back when I was in college, no. And now having so many women that are like really into stuff, it's so great, but stop calling people fake nerd girls, because they may just be starting with it, and they don't know that they don't know. Until you tell them, until you bring them down. And why do you want a person, let alone a girl that might date you because you're into the same things, why would you want to get them out of it by being a dick?
Yeah, I was going to say, Tim, you and I are the same age. And my first experience with this type of thing was actually in 1977 when Star Wars came out. And I was teased very badly in my class. It was my 4th grade class. I was teased very badly because I was the only girl in the class who preferred Han Solo to Luke Skywalker. And they were really mean about it.
Whore.
Yeah, they were really super mean about it. And, you know, it just struck me as kids being mean at the time. But I guess when you look back on it, you know, there was that kind of stuff happening as early as elementary school for me.
So when's the last time that you were at a convention or somewhere where you felt that somebody like really seriously talked down to you and your fandoms?
I think I have a different experience probably from other people at the table, because every convention I've ever gone to, I've been a vendor. And so I'm in my, comic book t-shirt or whatever I'm wearing, and I've got my Batman earrings on, but I'm behind a table, and that lends me a certain amount of legitimacy. Like, I am so into this culture that I am making things and selling them. And so I tend to not get that. But when I go into comic book stores, I will sometimes get, I'm very proud of my collection of John and Vasquez, Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, and related t-shirts. I will go in and I will get, oh, is that your boyfriend's t-shirt? And that always just instantly makes me a little crazy.
Makes you
No,
want to
he
punch people in
steals
the
my
balls?
t-shirts. Why would I not be wearing my own t-shirt?
Yeah, no, that drives me crazy too. And it's like one of the problems I run into in the stores all the fucking time is a lot of shit that I like is from like modern age. I appreciate Silver Age, I appreciate Bronze Age, but right now the shit that I'm trying to collect is the shit that I have. There's nothing in my mind that says this is going to be worth money someday. This is the stuff I want to get, the stuff I want to read first. And it's like, I'll go up to the counter and I'll have my stack of, Witchblade and artifacts and a bunch of image titles that I love that fucking universe. I love what they did tying all this into what could be any real world setting. And because I don't like, because it's not Superman or Batman or any of that shit, I get all these people that it's like they're checking it out and looking down their nose at my stack of comics. And it's like, it's almost, just say something. I honestly feel like it would be a hell of a lot easier to deal with, because that's the thing that pisses me off the most. When you can tell they have an issue with it, when you can tell they want to say something, for some reason they don't think that you're, like, you stack up, but they won't. That pisses me off more than anything else.
That's called brass hatting, and men do that to other men too. And it's different though, because men doing it, they'll go up. I'm going to tell a little story about My Little Pony now. You ready for this? You're going to like this, trust me. So, Julia and I were at New Dimension out at Century 3. And we were checking out and everything, and they had these little My Little Pony, like, little figurines, a little bag, you open it up. And she's busting my stone. She's like, ooh, you want me to get this for you? And I was like, no, not this time, maybe next time. And Chip, the guy who's the manager of the store, looked at me and went, Tim, no. I mean, cool. Be what you're into, whatever. And I said, what? I'm a brony. What? And all these other nerds who were kind of like, they heard the ruckus. And so they started kind of
Can you
sneaking
describe
over.
the ruckus, sir?
I'm describing it now, miss. So they all come over, and Chip says, look, I just don't understand why something can be, like, brand new and then a year later have a con. And I said, well, because as nerds, we're tired of cool things going away because we were too cool for school. Firefly! Or being watered down to the point that it was pointless because we didn't care enough. Or it was perceived we didn't care enough. Prequels! I said, so now, bronies kind of went, wow, this is really cool, and we're going to buy all of the crap associated with it so it doesn't go away.
Except, much like the Star Wars prequels versus the originals and everything else, there was a pre-existing fandom from the original My Little Ponies. You have to some degree, because actually, if you look prior to the re-release, there was a lot of people that would do art based off of the old pony. There's a huge collection market for people that remake the old ponies into new art, and that's been existing for, I can't even tell you how long. I know friends from...
They didn't have cons until Lauren Faust got her vision. So, but we're arguing about My Little Pony in the comic book store, and he said, why is this good? Why do people like this so much? And I said, well, because the woman who did it watched it as a kid, and one of her kind of life goals became, I like this, but the writing's crappy, the music's crappy. I want to do this and make it good. And she did. And they hire professional composers. Like, not just, here's a guy with a synthesizer, write actual composers, they write actual songs for it. The characters have story arcs, and sometimes they don't get what they want. Which, for a dramatic kind of character, I'm going through this whole thing, and Julia's, like, edging away from me like she doesn't know me. And all these guys are around going like, oh, that's dumb, that's dumb. And I said, well, and plus, John Delancey, who played Q, in Star Trek, played the first bad guy. And this guy over was like, no, he didn't. It's like, what do you mean? It's like, he wasn't the first bad guy. It's like, he was the first male antagonist of the ponies on the show. He wasn't the first antagonist, but he was the first bad guy. And this guy was like, he's quoting me chapter and verse, but he doesn't know anything about My Little Pony. You know what I'm saying? And then he says, he's like, well,
he was seriously pulling up episode numbers.
And then dude's like, well, and besides, he just played that character like Q. And I looked at him and I said, and why is that bad? Even if I take your point, why is that bad that now all these little girls who are into My Little Pony might get into Star Trek The Next Generation because the guy who played Discord plays Q? Why is this bad for our fandom? But hey, okay.
One question that has always interested me about the brony phenomenon is, do the men like the ponies because they like the ponies, or do they like the ponies because they know the girls like the ponies? And the reason I say this is that I have a 9-year-old son who came home from school and announced to me recently that he and his friend had decided it was in their best interest to become bronies. And I said, really? Why is that? And he explained that all of the girls in the class love My Little Pony. So if they like My Little Pony too, then the girls will like them.
So they're like fake brony boys.
Yeah. So I asked him. So I said to him, I was like, all right, so then who's your favorite pony? And I didn't think in a million years that he'd have an answer to that question, but he's like, oh, Pinkie Pie, of course.
That's my girl. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I actually said that at New Dimension. I was like, Pinkie Pie for life, son.
That's when I started looking
That's
like
when
I
she
don't know
started
him.
walking away like, I don't know him, I never met. I certainly never
definitely
done
do
that
not
with him.
sleep with him.
But no, seriously, my son started into the ponies because he wanted to impress girls, but the more he started learning about the ponies, the more now he really does like the ponies.
Well, here's why I like the ponies. I don't know if we told this whole story on other episodes. We might have, but I'm going to tell it again. Julia was working with her aunt because she just was. There was a family emergency. She needed to work. She was working double shifts, and she would come home and she would work her day job and then go out and clean offices. And then come back at like 11 o'clock at night and just be like, ponies! And be like, okay, we're going to put on the ponies now. Put it on Netflix. And so I started watching it with her.
And it was really great. It was this wonderful thing from my childhood that all of a sudden there's something new, something that's actually really good that goes along with it. And I had no idea he actually liked it at all until one day he worked, and I got home from the second job and he was still at work, and I watched a couple of episodes, and he comes home and it's on the Netflix and he's like, "You're watching it without me?"
I played it 5 episodes. I played it so cool. I was like, yeah, whatever. These songs are stupid. And while in my heart I'm like, oh my god, this is an actual show with actual characters and storylines.
When a few months ago, I got very, very sick, largely because I have a panic disorder, and it got really out of control. And I found that as I was like waiting for my medication to kick in and everything, it was very hard to watch things on television that were in any way suspenseful or loud. But My Little Ponies had just popped up on Netflix, and a bunch of my friends were watching it, so I put it on, start watching it. My fiance realizes that this is like the only thing I can handle, and so he starts watching it. And after like 3 or 4 days, he's like, I was just humoring you. This is really good. And then we watched all of the rest of it together.
When you talk about bronies, there's actually a cool documentary about it that's actually narrated by John Delancey on Netflix about the strange fandom of it. It's like there's 3 types. There's the artistics, who are the people that you were talking about earlier, Laurie, but have expanded to just people who are in the visual arts who are like, wow, here's a new world, a new palette I can play with. And there's musicians making like brony music. And I'm sure there's going to be Brony the Musical someday. And then you have the, I forget what they call them, but basically what we're talking about, Chris, your fiance and how I did it, where just for some reason you started watching it and people, just guys who were like, that's a cool show. I'll watch it. I'll watch all of them. I might watch them all more than once. And then there's like the real hardcore guys, the guys who are doing the full cosplay and the full like Laurie, you seem like you're...
I've seen pictures of Pinkie Pie cosplays. They cannot be unseen.
Why is that bad?
How is Pinkie Pie's normal mode of transportation?
Hopping?
Full-size, adult male, skin-tight clothing, Pinkie Pie. Some things cannot be unseen.
So we're going to put that on the Foreign Exchange
Can we
of
get
Western
a GIF?
Pennsylvania. I would love a GIF. That's how I'm going to pronounce it. I don't care if the guy who invented it says it's different. Okay, so that might be a little hardcore. But that's what they are. They're the hardcores. And they mostly just hang out with themselves. But it's a great documentary if you get a chance. I'm going to look it up, and when we put this up, I'll put it up on the Facebook page. Because it's great. They have a story about, like, this 14-year-old kid who's really into it. And then his dad is like, kid's a fag or something, I don't know. But then the mom convinces the dad to go with them. It's like, he really wants to go with them. So then you have this guy who is explained by everyone, including John Delancey, why he should stop being a fucking cockknocker about his kid liking My Little Pony. It's a beautiful thing. See it if you can.
You had asked the question before about being bullied or harassed at cons, and I am very interested to hear a cosplayer's answer to that question, because I'm sure you have like a million stories of that, because it's got to be a million times worse for you.
Yeah, it can be. It can be, especially because there is a certain expectation for a lot of female cosplays, which, thankfully I fulfill, but you do get a lot of... You notice it, especially with the lovely habit of guys with cameras. And I mean, it's not just it's actually something you deal with in photography, too. There is a extreme habit of gentlemen who will buy cameras. Not necessarily good cameras, but cameras for the express purpose of doing model pictures, which is their reason to see girls half-dressed. You see that a lot in girls that cosplay, too. The skimpier the outfit, the longer it takes you to get through a con.
Because everybody comes up and goes, hey, can we take a picture with you?
Exactly. So you don't necessarily see as much bullying, mainly because I tend to go for strong characters. So I think half of them are afraid I'm going to kick their ass if they try anything. But that's beside the point. You do see a non-verbal bullying going on with the, well, I can't see enough of your tits, so I'm going to go get this girl's picture instead. So there is a lot of that kind of bullying that goes on at cons. Thankfully, I'm not, like I said, I'm tall, I'm broad-shouldered, I am scary by nature, or so I'm told. So I don't have to put up with a lot of the bullying, but I know people that have. So, with cosplaying, absolutely yes. There is a ton of it. You deal with it more in the after effects, because most people won't say it to your face.
Oh, I've noticed so many times where it's like the crowds of people, like the group of 4 people walking through the con, and there's the one girl there that's, bigger. She's not built like a fucking stick. And there's just the entire group huddled together, pointing and look, oh my god, her belly's not flat.
It's worse on the internet. Once those pictures hit the internet, people feel like that is their right and privilege to say whatever they feel. I'm all for free speech, don't get me wrong, but there's a difference between having free speech and being a complete, utter, total dick with your ass so far up your head you can see back out your mouth.
And I think one of the things that especially bothers me is that there's the the guy behavior in this area, and then there's the women who do the term that I saw for it the other day was concern shaming. Where it's like, oh, honey, do you really think you should be wearing a skirt that short? Which is really just slut shaming, hidden behind a pretend concern for someone's well-being.
And it happens very much to cosplayers, too.
And it happens
specifically,
well.
Yeah, and as far as cosplayers are concerned, we can't fucking help it the characters were drawn that way.
Yeah, that's just it. Cosplaying has a immediate stigma because 90% of the characters women want to cosplay, strong, beautiful characters, are a size 2.
And they're drawn like Jessica Rabbit.
There are not enough real women-sized cartoon or non-cartoon characters out there for women to portray. So it immediately becomes, oh, you don't look like X, Y, and Z. Oh, you're not as skinny as so-and-so who did this, so what makes you think you should do that costume? Or, oh my god,
you're the
why
wrong
did...
race for that costume, or you're the wrong gender. That's a boy's costume. Why are you wearing that?
Exactly. I'm famous for doing crossplay. I love doing crossplay because the guys' costumes are a lot easier to deal with.
Friend of mine went to Comic-Con as Link, and she kicked ass, man.
That's awesome.
She was the best Link there.
I'm planning
awesome.
I'm planning a Loki for this year.
Oh, fantastic.
I mean, yes, I'm doing it as a corset, but I'm still doing a Loki because, you know what? It gives you a lot more freedom. You can do it as a skirt, sure. You can do it as pants. But, you know, we're limited as far as females go to our female cosplays of what is quote-unquote acceptable.
Well, and I think it's interesting, you know, one of the arguments I hear from guys is, well, you know, guy superheroes are drawn ridiculously too. They are. They're out of proportion. But how many guys have you seen dressed as Batman? And the Batman suit comes with the muscles built in, and that's okay. The problem is the men tend to be bigger, and it's easy in a costume to bulk up. The women tend to have these ridiculous body types that you can't whittle down. And
There's only so much
yeah,
corset
there's
training you
definitely
can do.
there's definitely a double standard in
So
in
it's
that
a subtle
expectation.
shaming and bullying, as a like, for example, I can remember, you know, getting almost into a fist fight because I got made fun of for reading a Mad magazine in homeroom, and a bunch of guys that fucking nerd. You know what I mean? Like is that more? Does that affect? Does the subtle bullying affect your psyches as much as somebody who comes up and says, "I'm going to punch you in the face because you don't look right"?
It's not all subtle. I mean, I haven't encountered it, but I know of people who have, where they will basically be backed into a corner by people who are demanding pictures or demanding their time. There have been cases of people with fake camera crews going around and doing fake interviews with cosplayers just to shame them. So
Yeah,
it's
that
not
is a
always
problem this
subtle.
year.
It's either extreme or it tends to be
Two-faced behind your back.
or blatant internet nastiness.
I've never had the experience of anyone being mean to me at a con, but recently on the internet there was a man, the only way I can describe this website is a male supremacy site. And they wrote an article called "The 3 Ways in Which Women Are Ruining Video Games." And I personally, and I mean my name, my picture, and my professional biography were put on this website without my knowledge or permission, and I was cited as the #1 thing that's ruining video games in the industry, because I've done a lot of speaking about how increasing choice in game romances can open up gaming to a wider market. But apparently because I preach that, I'm ruining video games. So it was the article itself was pretty cruel and unfair, but the comments were even worse. And so I've experienced it pretty directly on the internet, and there really isn't any check and balance for that. Because if you respond to it at all, they
win.
They win.
You feed the trolls.
Right. And it was really strange, right? Because on the one hand, I was really hurt and upset and freaked out by it. But on the other hand, I was like, wow, they just gave me a lot of power. I ruined video games myself.
All of the video games.
All of them.
You were truly internet famous.
So I went into work the next day and apologized to my boss for ruining video games. I said, yeah, I suppose we can all just pack it and go home now.
Yes, we'll just play Uno and Yahtzee.
Yeah.
But don't
That's
touch her
just
with Monopoly.
the thing
she'll
that
ruin
drove
it.
me the craziest about the thing that drove me the craziest about that article is just the incredibly narrow fucking mindset, because everything it was talking about, the ways that you've ruined games, you know, trying to bring the romance aspect into it, trying to bring, you know, not just male female, that more options than just that, to be more reflective of real life. These are legitimately things that appeal to women. Even if it's not romance is the core of the game, this legitimately appeals to women because there's a certain lack of realism when you're completely just railroaded into the storyline. And in general, women's thought processes tend to branch out more. Why not make plots that branch out more? And it's like everything that they said about what you stood for being wrong with video games. How the fuck does this apply to your first-person shooter? It doesn't.
And it never will. The thing that pissed me off most about that article was that when you talk about nerd shaming and whatnot, and what they did was, instead of starting with, like, here are my legitimate points about how I think your point of view is wrong, they were like, Heidi NacDonald, a fat woman from Pittsburgh, is doing this shit to video games. And, like,
Yeah,
what does somebody's size in any... Because back in the day, newspapers around the country, that when they were being racist, would say things like, you know, Joe Smith, a Jew, was accused of this crime. Joe Smith, a Negro, was accused of this crime. And then, of course, if it was a white guy, they wouldn't go a Caucasian. But they just wouldn't put the stories about those in the paper. To just amp up the hatred. That's the thing that bugged me the most. Because you guys all know, I know nothing about video games. Pretty much. Like, the last video game I played for an extended period of time on purpose was Pitfall.
She ruined it.
And that... she ruined it because all of a sudden I could kiss the crocodile. I want to kiss the crocodile. I want to destroy them and find the magic amulet. Why are you ruining things?
Well,
even though we were both 16 at the time.
Now, what I found very interesting about that article is they talked a whole bunch of smack about women in the video game industry as a whole. I mean, they called me out personally and specifically, and they also called out Anita Sarkeesian, and I felt pretty cool to be lumped in with her. That was amazing. But they specifically called out, well, not like Felicia Day. Felicia Day is cool. They gave specific cred to Felicia Day, but pretty much every other woman could go to hell.
And
Which I thought was good.
I wish there was a way to call out trolls like that. I wish Felicia Day would come out and do something on Geek and Sundry, because everybody watches Geek and Sundry, and just be like, yeah, I'm gonna name names. You, and anybody who commented that they were right on their things, you are banished. You are no longer nerds, you are no longer geeks, you're just assholes, leave. I wish we could do that, but it's, but then that beats the trolls too, right? So
Yeah.
The biggest thing that drives me nuts about nerd shaming, and it's not just the female nerd shaming, it's all nerd shaming, is we should have learned growing up, we were the outcasts. We were the ones that got bullied. Why the hell do we think it's right to do it to our fellow geeks? Mm-hmm. What makes us think that this is the right way to go? Think how awful it felt when you were in grade school and got bullied for having these passions. And now, because your passions are quote-unquote better than someone else's passions, I do pseudo-nerd shaming between my best friend and I because she's a DC and I'm a Marvel. That's different!
Well, yeah, because you're right.
But what makes them think that it's right to do the things that...
I think a lot of it's just a hangover, the fact that, oh my god, all of a sudden I'm the one who knows more. I'm the one in the nerd culture. Strength doesn't matter. Geek. Brain power does.
But
I have the brain power over this.
But when you knew how
lovey-dovey
awful...
infringement, this pile of crap, this fluff. That's all this is. This is fluff, and you're wrong. Your opinion is wrong.
When you knew how awful it was growing up, and, it turned you into the person you are, what makes you want to do that to somebody else? You have this pseudo power. You know what?
It's like in fraternities.
That's the thing. Why does the kid who is...
Right? They haze people because, and when you say, well, why would you do that? It's like, well, it got done to me, so I'm going to do it to them, and it's tradition. It's almost as if a lot of the nerd shaming, now that I'm thinking about it, might be subconsciously people just trying to haze. They're saying, I'm going to see how much you know, and then if you know enough, then okay, you're cool, you're in the fraternity. If not, get the fuck out.
I mean, it could be that, or the other thing is, the child who is beaten grows up to beat their own child. If the hate is all that you know, you don't know any other way to look at anybody different from you.
But they're not even different from them necessarily.
But
they're the same as
well, no, they're in
some.
DC, and that's just wrong.
But I think a lot of what they're doing in those conversations is trying to show that you are different from them. Like, okay, well, so I like Doctor Who and you like Doctor Who, but your Doctor Who love involves Christopher Eccleston. And my Doctor
Tennant,
Who love...
get it right.
Yeah, I do.
I'm sorry.
If
you don't think John Pertwee was the best doctor, then you're a communist and you're a faggot, and I can't talk to you anymore.
Okay, we can all go home now.
Yeah. We'll just go to
Once
the
again,
Tennant party. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the last episode of Nerd Shame. Please send your angry email someplace else because you should know I was just fucking around.
Let's go have a party in the TARDIS car. We're fine.
Yeah.
Can I bring Kira?
Yeah. Sure.
Wow. Conversation derailed.
No, I will say it's hard to be taken seriously sometimes in an industry where you are outnumbered 90% to 10. And as a video game designer, that's what the statistic is. According to the International Game Developers Association, it is 90% male and 10% female. And most of the positions that are held by females are marketing, PR, finance, receptionists,
Girls
things like
don't
that.
play video games. Everybody knows that.
No, girls play casual Facebook games. That's the way that it's being said. But there is a little bit of a struggle that goes on to be taken seriously in that. And it's like nobody's been outwardly mean to me, but there have been a few guys in the office who I've learned to avoid because they just have this general air of, you can tell that they resent my being there. I am not the
You're
typical...
in penis territory,
Yeah,
bitch.
it's like, no, I'm not the typical case, right? It's like a lot of people will go to school for video game design or whatever, and they'll get into the industry when they're like, 22, 23 years old. I came into it when I was 41, so I'm like the unlikely case. And not only am I the unlikely case, but I'm twice the age of anybody else in my office. So it's an age thing, but it's also a female thing. And so there are people in the office who are just like, what's that old lady doing here kind of thing. And so I feel as though I've had to try twice as hard.
Let grandma out the old
Yeah,
folks home.
exactly. Well, no, it was actually pretty funny because the guys got into an argument at work over whether 1985 or 1986 was the better year. And I was the only one in the office at that point who hadn't been in diapers at the time, so that was so I was given the right to settle that conversation, and I gave it to 1985 based on Live Aid and Back to the Future in the same year.
Good call.
See, I would say 1986 because it's when the Bronze Age switched over to the Modern Age.
Okay.
Comics.
Oh, sorry.
Comic books.
Are you nerd shaming me?
You're a fake geek girl because you don't know everything about the Marvel versus DC conflict.
No, all this means
See, that's the thing. There are so many things now that so many younger females and males are getting into. Like, before, it used to be, like, okay, I'll give you a perfect example of this.
all this means is I've just now ruined comic books too.
No,
Wait, we need one more so you can go for a trifecta.
Yeah.
Spawn did that. That wasn't good. It's funny because it's true. No, I'll give you an example. The whole idea of, in nerddom, I'm a Star Wars person, I'm a Star Trek person, I'm a Battlestar Galactica person, I'm a Doctor Who person. I've said this before. 1975, I started watching the first syndication run of Star Trek. 1976, I started watching Doctor Who. Terror of the Zygons, Episode 2. Yeah. Oh, yeah. August 15th of 1970. And, of course, 1977, Star Wars came out.
Did you watch the original series, Battlestar Galactica, though? Every episode?
I did.
Yes.
And I had all the cards and some of the action figures, too. And here's the thing, though. In my mind, it was never like, well, okay, Star Trek, it's a little more intellectual, it's a little more philosophical, it's a little more high-minded, whereas Star Wars, well, that's like a space opera kind of thing, and that's mostly aimed at kids, was meant as a children's movie, so therefore I'm going to pick one or the other. I just loved all of it. Any little bit I could get. So last Free Comic Book Day, it fell on May the 4th.
Oh!
And I did the Star Wars trivia contest, and I went and I got a really crappy Jedi robe from the costume store, and tried to put together a costume. And of course, they had the 501st Legion there with like their awesome. And luckily, your brother Rickert Comfort, and thank you, Richard, again, and I want to borrow it again this year, had an actual Jedi robe that he had made in his trunk, because he was there as like the, hey, if you want to try a European board game, I'm here, playing games with people. So at least I had the real thing. So all these people came, and some Star Trek people came. So it was all these cosplayers doing Star Wars, and then like 3 or 4 people. And they were affiliated, of course, and they were all friends. And I remember I came in for the last round before the final round, and I fucked up because I was looking at this really cool Klingon. This guy was awesome. And I was like, okay, guys, in the back, last round of the Star Trek trivia contest. And everybody in line, and the line went all the way to the door, went, oh! And I went, oh, Star Wars, sorry. I looked at it and I said, but we will have a Star Trek trivia contest as soon as there's an International Star Trek Day. So even me in that situation got a little like balkanized, us versus them. And that's what I would like to
Pun intended.
know.
Yeah.
Yes. But that's the significant thing. How do we end this? Are the younger people going to end it because they don't care? It's like, yeah, I play Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh! And I like Battlestar Galactica and I like Doctor Who. Fuck you. Telling me what I can and can't like. And I've actually heard people say you can't like Star Trek as much as you like Star Wars. It's like, sure I can. It's different things. That's like you say you can't like chicken as much as you like beef.
You can't.
They're two
but
different...
that's because it's chicken.
They're both things...
You can't eat rare chicken.
They're both things that can be delicious at time or made poorly, and they're both things that nourish your body and soul. Oh, metaphor. I'm sorry, I only get 2 of them a month, and I think that one was pretty good. So let me ask you this. You guys have collections? Are you collectors of junk like I am? Okay, let's go around and let's talk about what you collect and why.
Ponies, because I used to make a killing with those things at hippie festivals. Seriously, it would cost me like $6 to make my special ponies, and I could sell them for like 15 to 20.
See the one with the little piece of metal on top? Yeah.
So I'm still completely obsessed with My Little Ponies because that is just something that has, in one way, shape, or form, managed to be there my entire life. Comic books, I'm really getting into those just because I love it's. Honestly, for me, it's the merging of medias. I love the story, I love the art, and I love the fact that you can actually have something where they combine.
She actually reads her comic books, which I find to be weird.
And also Grateful Dead shit. It's like, they had made Beanie Baby, Grateful Dead Teddy Bears. Mm-hmm. Those, I fucking love those things. But, just on top of that, like, puzzles, books, all kinds of random shit, because that was, like, whenever I was in 3rd grade, the Grateful Dead were coming through, and as soon as I read that in the magazine section of the paper, because I could do that at that age, I'm running up to my mom, Mom, the Grateful Dead are coming through, Mom, can we please go? Take me, and she's promised, up and down, I promise, next time they come through, we'll go. You're just not quite old enough yet, but next time you will be.
And then Jerry Garcia died.
Uh-huh. And when I read that in the newspaper, I held the paper up to her and said, what now? So that's just, that's something that I've always had just in the back of my mind that, I've loved everything about them at that age. And it's just something that I'll never actually get to see that. So at least with the collecting, I can kind of fill that hole.
Okay, for me, collecting is all over the boards. I mean, definitely a Whovian. Every room in my house has at least one TARDIS. Somewhere, including the bathroom. It's the wonderful TARDIS bank with Tennant peeking out the door, so it freaks some people out.
That's great.
Well, I was going to say, as long as you don't have to, like, take a dump in the TARDIS, I'm probably okay with it.
I'm a good paint it like the back of the toilet, you can do that.
I'm a big collector of art. My living room is primary colors, but the walls are covered in wonderful various geek arts. I have some of them are custom, some of them aren't. Posters done by various artists. Etsy is the bane of my existence. It really is. Because there are so many wonderful, talented artists out there that I've run out of space to put everything. Books. Favorite authors are... Yeah, I have more books than I will ever have space for them unless someone decides to build me a beautiful library that's 3 or 4 stories tall, which is once again wishful thinking, but I've got to put it out there. Maybe someone will feel pity for me.
Someone who owns a bookstore?
I'll take your books off your hands.
No. Where are we going to find a person like that?
No. My books stay. In fact, I have floating bookshelves in my house with my autographed Neil Gaiman and Pratchett's and stuff like that. So no, books are definitely a passion of mine, and I just like collecting comic books, definitely. But I'm probably going to get nerd shamed here because not only do I collect and read, I also create art with them, like shoes, which means butchering comic books.
There's no
And I
judgment here.
No, there's no
Not-
judgment
not
because
here.
I'm sure that the ones you're getting are the ones you're getting for a nickel that didn't have covers or something.
Actually, I'm looking modern age because I like the brightness of the art better for the shoes. So once again, we're dealing with mass produced. It's not like I'm going out and buying rare ones to do this with.
Okay,
But-
I've got a shit ton of comics that you can take with you today to do that.
Fantastic. So, you know, I'm always looking for new things to do stuff like that with. So those are my collections.
I don't collect a whole lot of stuff because then whenever you move, you have like all this stuff and it's
Well, that's why we'll never move.
But no, at work, everyone is encouraged to put flair around their desks. 37 pieces of flair and all that. But my flair is all pirate flair. Everything pirates, whether that's Pirates of the Caribbean, whether that's custom pirate hat I had made from somebody I met at the Ren Fair.
Wait,
Be honest.
the hat is made from the person?
No, made by the person.
Be honest, you moved to Pittsburgh because our baseball team was the Pirates.
No, that's a coincidence. There are a lot of people in the office who, when I say I really love pirates, they think I'm talking about baseball. But I really don't know a damn thing about baseball. It does make it a lot easier to cover anything I want to cover with a Jolly Roger flag. That makes things more possible. But yeah, I collect his books about historical piracy, and I devour them and read them all. I thought that I was pretty good about Nightmare Before Christmas until I saw that she's got it all the way, like tattoo sleeve all the way up her arm. I'm like, damn, that's awesome. The most
I
dangerous.
thought that was Barry Manilow.
That's a lot.
No, the most dangerous store on earth for me is that one, like, whenever you're coming off of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride in Disney World, and they've got Pirates of the Caribbean in one half of the store and Nightmare Before Christmas in the other half of the store. That is the most dangerous store on earth for me. But I also
Chris,
play
you're
a lot.
getting a little flushed over here.
I play a lot of
I've
games
been to
too.
that store.
Do you have a lot of video games?
Yeah,
Do you
many,
collect vintage
many.
video games or just like
No,
whatever you happen to get?
we actually have to. It's part of our job at work to keep up with what all the popular games are.
That must be horrible.
Yeah, it's
so
such
jealous.
a shame,
Oh my
right?
god, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, but that's
Dude, popular video
See, now you're
games
ruined
suck
collecting too.
no. The thing that I'm playing right now that I absolutely totally love is Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag.
Pirates?
Pirates. All right. Here's what I will say: is if any character in that game with a first name and a last name, Google that because it's going to be an actual historical pirate. I thought they did that so well. So I was
Awesome.
like, yay! Yeah.
Right on. And
I collect books. All kinds of books.
is
Comic books, reading books, art books.
now, are they all for sale, or do you have your own private
Oh, no,
collection?
no,
like,
no.
like
My-
I'll be good goddamn if I'm selling that.
There's probably about 30 to 35,000 books in the bookstore. I have my own collection of I don't know how many thousand books. Lots and lots of science fiction, fantasy, annotated classics, things like that. But yeah, definitely books are my biggest collection. And I collect tons of Nightmare Before Christmas stuff that decorates my bookstore now. And I'm starting a Star Trek collection. I only have a few things, including this lovely Kira Nerys doll.
Where'd you get that?
I think I got that from you.
Oh my goodness, does that still have the
Wait,
tag on it?
wait,
It
wait,
does still
wait,
have
wait.
the tag on it.
You mean your man cave's getting less cluttered?
Only by one Kira
Just by
Nerys.
one thing.
I'll take it.
And some comic books too. What are you showing? Laurie is showing something.
The shoes.
The shoes.
Oh, the shoes that you make. Now, are you on Etsy as well?
No. I
You're
have
like, no.
Oh, those are the
Can you do
Deadpool
flats?
shoes.
I can.
I was
Oh,
just
we
gonna
need to
say
stop
those
after
are
this.
beautiful, but I would
Because I
kill
just can't-
myself.
yeah, I
if
can't
Yeah,
wore
they're a
them.
6-inch heel. They're wonderful for about 2 hours at Dragon Con.
That's,
Then I
that's,
want to murder someone with the heel, which, isn't always a bad
it's a
thing.
good weapon. Wow.
I'm
Now, let
afraid
me
of
ask you guys this
smartphones. I don't
too.
wanna-
What are your... Because one thing that annoys me the most about people when I tell them I'm a collector and whatnot is one of the first things they ask is, well, what's your collection worth? It's this weird disconnect of like, oh, you're in this weird nerdy thing, but if maybe someday you'll make money on it, then this is America, we can forgive you for that. No, but like that, this is how...
I've never been asked that.
Never?
Nope.
No.
And
Maybe it's
truthfully, I would say it's priceless because I don't associate any of the things that I buy with it having value. It has value to me, sentimental value to me, because it's important to me.
I don't associate ever selling it. So
Yeah, no.
Well,
I
no,
do
I
get-
don't associate selling things either. But tell you what, it's all about the joy of the hunt for me. So when Phantom of the Attic had their, oh crap, Pitt just bought our warehouse, we have to get rid of all of our comics. Here, they're a dime a piece or $5 for a giant bag of them. There is a certain, when you're putting them into the website, where you go, okay, I got this for a dime, and oh look, it's worth $3. Oh wait, the original cover price was $4. So there is something, not that I'm like, oh, I'm going to sell
You
my
just
comic
totally
book collection
co-conjured.
now. But it does enter my psyche as part of the joy of the hunt when you're like, I got a comic for 50 cents, an I Spy comic from like 1966, the perfect condition for 50 cents, and it's worth $165 legit because nobody kept them. Because no kids wanted a freaking I Spy comic in 1966. But, so I'm just curious.
I get people who ask me, what is the most valuable book in the bookstore? Or how much is the whole, if I wanted to buy every book in your store, what would it be worth? But I've never had questions about my personal collection.
What is the most valuable book in your bookstore?
Offhand, I would say it is probably the first edition Sister Carrie by Theodore Dreiser. There was a very limited number of them printed, and immediately after it was printed, there was all this media backlash because it's the story of a woman who succeeds in her chosen career by basically dating the right guys and making the right connections. And at the time, it was horribly scandalous. It's one step away from prostitution.
So
The book got yanked from stores almost immediately, and
Anita
very few
Perron.
of them survived.
I was going to say Ava Perón, but I thought Hillary Clinton would be more people listening to this might know who she actually is.
I'm a musicals geek too, so I've got Ava
Yeah,
Perron
actually,
covered.
my fiance wanted to do something very nice for me. He said that this Valentine's Day coming up, he said he was going to let that day be anything I want day. But he said that before he realized that Mamma Mia is at Heinz Hall that night. Yeah, so he's gonna be an ABBA fan, I think.
How could you not? She took me for my birthday last year.
And then he bought the gayest tote bag ever.
I did. At the end, what they do is they sell tote bags, and there are certain disposable props from the show that you can buy, and then they donate all the money to Broadway Cares, and they've raised over $1 million just that run of the show. And one of the things was this blue tote bag that said Mamma Mia on it. It's kind of gay, I guess. I don't know. But I walked up and it was like, I need that. And she said, I will sell it to you. And I said, good, thank you. And we're all dressed up, and we're walking to get the bus. And I've got, in my pockets, of course, she's got a nice dress on, so I've got like her cigarettes and her bus transfer and all this. And I'm like, here, hold this. And she's like, no. Just hold the gay tote bag of ultimate doom or whatever. Just hold it for a second. No. It's like, all right, then you don't get your bus pass. She's like, all right, and she literally held it 2 fingers like a dirty diaper that you're taking to the garbage.
But the only reason I actually refer to it as the gayest tote bag ever is because we found this pin. Well, I found this pin somewhere, and it was a heart-shaped pin with the colors of the rainbow, and it just said San Francisco on it. And I now put that on the bag as the dot on the exclamation point. So it can legitimately be called that.
And I could go into the entire significance of ABBA as a groundbreaking musical group, both technically and whatnot. But I won't. I think we're on the same page here that ABBA's cool.
Hey, he isn't convinced yet. I played him 2 songs, and he was making faces the entire time, but then damn if he wasn't doing the dishes later standing there, Mamma Mia, and he's like, God damn it!
It gets you.
Yeah, it does.
Did he never dance to One Night in Bangkok when it was on Top 40 Radio?
No, he's 10 years younger than I am.
Okay.
Well, that's not ABBA.
It is. Chess
Yes, it
was
is.
written by
Chess-
Benny and Bjorn.
Benny and Bjorn wrote that, yes.
Well, but it's not ABBA.
Not technically.
I'm sorry, if the chicks aren't in, if Agatha isn't in there, it ain't ABBA.
Well, have you heard that they have agreed to reunite for one show?
She finally relented.
Yes.
They finally put enough money, dollar signs in
Yeah.
front of her that she's like, all right, I guess I need to send my grandkids to college.
Well, no, first of all, they offered them $1 billion and they turned it down. And I'm like, how much do you have to hate someone to turn down $1 billion, right? But I guess they're having a 125th anniversary of some sort in Europe. And they approached her for her patriotism and said, you know, do this for Europe.
Which means I can pay you half.
And so
Do this for
apparently,
Sweden.
yeah, apparently they are going to, they're going to appear.
What you should do is, anybody, if you're interested in ABBA, and you should be, because just the what they did with the Wall of Sound, and what they did with doing like 35 tracks of each voice, like anything.
Wait. Back it up. Wall of Sound?
They used the Wall of Sound, and they changed it with how that. What? Why are you looking at me like that?
When did they use the Wall of Sound? How many years after the Grateful Dead used the Wall of Sound?
I'm saying what they did with the Wall of Sound. I didn't say that they're freaking Phil Spector inventing the Wall of Sound. I'm saying what they did with it and how they overdubbed tracks. Like, if you enjoy hip-hop at all, like any sort of hip-hop, it's because of ABBA. Because they did it and showed, and it was like this convergence of ABBA, the Wall of Sound, and Dolby, all converging.
To create the Wu-Tang Clan.
Exactly. So you're welcome.
This is awesome.
Well, it's
So all
funny.
you juggalos better send ABBA a thank you note.
Well, I was actually in Sweden earlier this year, and I did not hear a single ABBA song the entire time I was in Sweden. I was really disappointed. Oddly enough, they were playing Katy Perry in the streets after 11 o'clock at night.
Well, you can
To get everybody outside.
To get everybody to come.
Go home, go home.
You
Yeah.
can thank ABBA for
Calm the
that
fuck
too.
down and get out.
You can thank ABBA for that too. Goddamn with the goddams.
They had their costumes standing there in the Stockholm airport.
That's what. But
I've
if
seen
you
that
want to
picture.
start with ABBA, start
I'm a little
with
obsessed.
their Eurovision song. And any Americans who don't know what Eurovision is basically one band from each country in Europe goes and it's a battle of the bands. And then you get a record contract and you get some money and it's a big thing. And it was the first time Sweden had ever won. And they came and so the song is called Waterloo.
Waterloo. Awesome.
So go, and you can find it on YouTube, their original Eurovision performance of it, like in the finals. And it's really cool, and it's not as complex as their later stuff, but just the songwriting technique is...
Yep.
Don't you music nerd shame me.
No?
We're all in agreement.
Yeah. Oh,
Except for her.
except for her. That's all right.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a little break. Some people take a break for like pizza and whatnot. We're going to take a break so the smokers can smoke. So we're going to come back in just a few minutes. And I'm going to figure out how to... Which button do I push to pause? Yeah.
I have all these things actually. That was the answer. Oh, I wish I had my phone.
This one?
My
He's gonna
friend Kat
keep
Mihos,
that.
who
Okay, so we're back from our smoke break, and I've cleared out some stuff from the man-child cave. I like to sometimes give my guests some little gifts, some little mementos, as it were. And,
Awesome sauce.
of course, now Laurie is actually reading all the comic books I gave her to do her shoes with, and so she's going to be out for a minute. Now, Chris, while we were smoking, you said something that I think was very relevant. Could you repeat it?
I said that I think we were talking about sort of like the Star Wars versus Star Trek thing. I think much like in Pittsburgh sports, where we're very into our sports teams as a city, and we have a friendly rivalry with many other teams. That's one part of geek culture where it's like, I like Star Wars, well, I like Star Trek. And then there's like when Pittsburgh plays against the Baltimore Ravens, where there are actually like people screaming and throwing things, and there are fist fights. And that's the other part of geek culture, the like, well, my thing is better than yours. And it's very adversarial. And I think...
And therefore, I must destroy you as a human being.
I think in terms of like where we want to progress in geek culture is to a point where everything is the friendly rivalry. I mean, like the Marvel versus DC, you can have a totally civil conversation and mock each other and
Or
make good
Scott
points.
Summers versus anybody else, even in the
has a
DC
hairball.
universe.
But
Dude,
I've seen.
I keep trying to trade Scott Summers to DC. He fits their personality better. He's a whiny bitch.
Oh.
I've even offered to throw in Peter Parker. Because let's face it, Batman really belongs at Marvel. So, I'll give them what it takes to make that change.
So yeah, friendly rivalry. That's what we want. Friendly rivalry.
Even within those communities, there are rivalries because I've seen guys at the office nearly come to blows about whether Captain Kirk or Captain Picard is better.
That is. I saw something on the interwebs, and
the Kirk guys would have thrown the first punch.
right, but Picard could have ducked it.
Unless a half-naked woman walked by. Then it would have been all over.
All over her. Anyway. Oh! So I saw a thing on the interwebs, and it had a guy's in his bedroom had like Yu-Gi-Oh stuff or something. I didn't quite recognize it, but I knew it was geek related. And it said, pathetic man-child. And then right next to it was a guy with all football gear. Dominating the room where it was like, perfectly normal. Perfectly normal.
Has anybody seen Trekkies, the documentary?
Yes.
The woman who went to the Clinton trials in her full uniform, and she said, well, people wear football jerseys and hockey jerseys and all these things. This is what I'm into. I wear the stuff. What, I don't see what the difference is.
At the last Comic-Con in December, the Steel City Con, I saw somebody show up in Star Trek uniform, and the security guard said, you have to put this wristband on. And he got into an argument with him saying, I will not defile the honor of this uniform with the wristband, because then I will be out of uniform. And it's an honor for me to wear this uniform, and I'm not going to...
Well,
That would be valid. But never mind. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say put it around the phaser. Put it around the phaser. Somebody goes, "Where's your wristband?" Just go there.
No,
Boom,
he
done.
put it through a belt loop. But I think the funniest security moment was the 9-foot-tall Chewbacca that had to be patted down, and he had the little button in his hand where if he pushed it, it would be like, oh, and then so that he was 9 feet tall or just very tall, and the security guy was patting Chewbacca down, and Chewbacca's just standing there pushing the button every once in a while, just going, oh.
Which of course is Wookiee for wrong hole. Now I got a question about Doctor Who, because I think everybody here is at least tertiarily a Doctor Who fan. Like I go way back. I'm not nerd shaming, but anybody else into classic Who?
Yeah.
And were you before the new Who came out? Or okay.
Yeah.
And then everybody else is pretty much Chris Eccleston on.
Vaguely classic Who because of Douglas Adams.
Yes.
Okay.
That is
okay.
wonderful.
Now, here's my question. And this is actually one of the reasons why I wanted to have this panel. Because when they announced that Peter Capaldi was going to be the new Doctor, having watched the evolution of Doctor Who fandom from all guys and I think 3 girls in North America to then when Eccleston, and especially when Tennant came on, then all of a sudden you had what someone would call fake. I'm not, but you know when you go from 0 to 80 miles an hour metaphorically into fandom, and it's the cute skinny guy in the hipster suit going. And then Matt Smith, which Heidi, I know you hate Matt Smith.
Yes.
You do not like his Doctor at all.
No.
But it exploded even more with female fans with Matt Smith. So one of the first things when they announced Capaldi is I went, ugh, where is the fangirl? What's the fangirl base going to think about this? Because pretty much as the fangirls go with Doctor Who, so the program goes too, because if all the fangirls that are putting up 47 posts a day, yeah, I'm talking to you, Alex Daimler. No, it's my buddy from college. He likes Doctor Who a lot. I think, because I just don't want the show to go away, so I'm hoping that the fangirls are quote-unquote real and really just love the show and not just the actor. Laurie, what's your take?
As the resident lover of all things British, I'm familiar with Capaldi before this was announced, and I happen to adore the man, and I think he's got the chops to do it. I really do. I think he's going to pull in a different set of fandoms and different sets of geeks who may not have liked Matt Smith or may not have liked some of the story arcs. He's going to offer different opportunities. There again, yes, you will lose some of the tweens and some of the younger ones, but every fandom's going to have changes that will bring in new fans and lose old fans. In some ways, it does weed out, and I hate using the term because it's not accurate, because there is no such thing, but if you are going to have quote-unquote fake fans that are mainly only there because of an actor,
Or let's say less committed fans.
I like that
Or
term.
Less committed.
It's not even necessarily less committed, but people who are fans of an actor, not
Right.
fans of the entire
Exactly.
entity.
If you came into it because
of
you
the
adore
genre.
Matt Smith, or because you love David Tennant, or whatever reason you came into the series,
It's like Guardians of the Galaxy. Bradley Cooper, of all people, is playing Rocket Raccoon. So it's like, why the fuck, pardon my French, but they have Bradley Cooper? It's like, well, because he's hot. And even though it's just his voice, that's going to get a certain segment of people, of females who are not into nerd culture, to be like, Bradley Cooper's in this movie? I'm going to go see it. And by the way, last week I said Bradley Cooper was in The Notebook. That was Ryan Gosling. I made a mistake. Okay.
sorry,
That said, I have mad respect for Bradley Cooper because he's got a master's degree in theater and he speaks several languages. So he's not just a
funny.
face. Yeah.
onto that same term, I feel the same way about the youngest Olsen being cast as Scarlet Witch. She's not my Scarlet Witch. I'm sorry. She's really not. So I understand that theory.
Let's get into this, because this is something I really wanted to figure out the significance of with this casting. Like, who would you have cast as Scarlet Witch then?
I would have rather gone for an unknown, honestly.
She is pretty unknown.
She's still an Olsen.
Except for the fact that her last name is Olsen. Well, that's like saying...
She's too young.
That's like saying that Billy Baldwin and Stephen Baldwin... Well, Billy Baldwin must be as good of an actor as Alec Baldwin because he's a Baldwin. I'm saying the youngest Olsen, and I've seen her in very, very little. I've just seen her in snippets. Seems like a much more committed and legitimate actress than her older sisters.
I can't debate that. It's just, for me, she's too young to be my Scarlet Witch.
At least she didn't kill Heath Ledger.
We're not even doing that. That's different. But she's too young to be my Scarlet Witch. I still, even though they've taken it in a different path, had led hopes for a Vision reunion. And she's...
Coulson will be the Vision, eventually.
But in that lines, dude, that's just creepy if Olsen is Scarlet Witch. I'm sorry. I don't care about age. No, it does not work in any universe. I don't care what universe they're rewriting.
So remember, I'm kind of a dumb guy, so I need you to stop beating around the bush and let me know how you really feel about this, because...
Oh, am I being too subtle? I'm sorry. I will try and fix that next time.
There's got to be a hammer around here somewhere you can beat me over the head with. So, okay, so I take it you don't like the casting of Wonder Woman as well?
Oh, God, no.
Two
However,
words, body type.
yes. There is a reason there's a body type called an Amazonian.
She wasn't tall. She wasn't that tall in the comic books.
Height doesn't play into it. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. There's still a body type that is an Amazonian.
It's a little thicker. Yeah, I know. Like the original.
But I
Wonder
mean,
Woman was a
they've
little
made Seth
thicker,
Green
but she
look
was
as
5
tall
feet
as other actors in other movies.
I'm not
and
going for height.
they're-
I'm going for body type.
Yeah. But I'm well aware.
The amount of bulking this woman would have to do to suitably be labeled Amazonian.
But she's going to be Kryptonian.
Don't care.
That's a whole nother.
Yeah,
we could do
why
an
not?
entire show on how wrong.
Well,
it
no.
is.
Listen. Here's.
But the thing is,
Listen,
it's like
the
actors and
Kryptonian
actresses gain weight, lose weight all the time for movies. I mean, you've seen. I mean,
But you can't change bone
Christian
structure.
Right.
Robert De Niro.
There is
Yeah.
I've got the bone structure. You can never change that. I'm broad-shouldered. No
Right.
matter how much I bulk up or lose weight, I'm still always going to be broad-shouldered. You can only fix or change basic body structure so much.
But the thing is, with such a petite frame, putting some muscle on it and, you know, little camera tricks with perception, you can actually make her look bulkier with camera tricks.
And she's Kryptonian. That's what they're going with this. And you know what? Okay, listen. In the Kryptonians in the Man of Steel movie, they don't have sex, right? They've got the little cloning things. Part of Diana's backstory is she comes from immortal island of women. No men, no babies, and then finally there's her, and she's supposed to be a goddess, and the gods got together and did it. I can totally see the math they're trying to use to get normal people, I'm saying with air quotes, into the mythology of having super beings that, okay, oh look, okay, we're gonna make a new Amazonian out of this, and maybe when the men went away, they went underwater and fucked some mermaids, and that's how you got Aquaman.
This is, I think, the reason that there's such a backlash from women about Wonder Woman. It's been this massive fight to get Wonder Woman on film. And we've been told, well, women won't go see that movie, so why would you make it? Women don't read comic books, all this stuff. So we finally get a Wonder Woman movie. And nothing against this actress. It's not that I have any question about her ability to play the role, and I know that there's a lot of camera tricks that they can use to make her physically more appropriate to the role. It's that we finally get this icon of female power, and instead of choosing of the many actresses they could have chosen, they chose this extremely petite person. And it's kind of frustrating.
But it's a form of shaming.
I don't know because at the same time, depending on how they work the script, this very petite woman who can knock pretty much like the bouncer anywhere on their ass, this very petite woman who can punch Superman and send him into a wall, the small stature could actually work, depending on how talented the script writers are, to make her power seem greater.
It's a missed opportunity.
That's the same thing we've seen with Buffy. And with a lot of powerful women, it's like, oh, look, she's so little and cute and girly, but she's really a badass. That's still
works,
just an
isn't it?
entirely a male
Laurie,
fantasy.
Tying back to what we were talking about with the cosplay and everything else, though, by doing this, they are once again creating a size 2 that women can't cosplay too easily because you're going to get shamed.
Size 0, yeah.
But it's the same mentality. So by casting someone who is built like that, you're once again saying, oh, you're big, shame, 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 you can't play this. Oh, you're not built like a size 2 runway model, shame, 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 why are you doing this? It comes back to that same shaming. Rather than casting someone strong and powerful and with that build that women can be like, hey, I can do this. No, they cast someone that's unrealistic for 90%.
Look at the response when the first time on Game of Thrones, when we see Brienne of Tarth and we realize that she really is this massive, powerful woman. Mm-hmm. I mean, the internet exploded with women going, oh, this was so phenomenal, and all of a sudden Tumblr is just full of photos of the actress in different roles and in her own clothing, and, you know, look at how tall she is. And that was, I think for a lot of women, they found that so empowering. They did not take this woman, who, of course, in the book, she is really, really homely, and then on the TV show, she's gorgeous.
Well, that's television.
But they did not make her smaller. They didn't make her a little kick-ass girl. They made her this big,
Let me ask this.
Hold on. The other thing about her being really, really homely in the books, being a big-ass woman, she could have the most gorgeous face.
Exactly.
And within that culture, she would still be considered an ugly monstrosity.
Yeah.
So,
that's how I read it,
and they don't go into that much depth about her bone structure. Like the bone structure of the face or the proportions of the face. You know, it's like they really just focus on the meat.
Yeah. And that's always how I read it, is
but
that her hideousness is entirely in the fact that she is this massive, powerful
But there are
woman.
so few writers or producers that are willing to take on that and say, listen, we can make this person, we can make them beautiful. Mm-hmm. And that's part of the constant shaming that is being shoved down women's throats.
Now, I have a question. So women with this, and I don't know the character, I don't know Game of Thrones at all, I'm going to be honest.
Boobies and dragons.
What's that?
Boobies, swords, and dragons.
Wieners.
And incest.
And wieners.
Yeah. She said swords.
I did say swords.
Wieners, yes. My question is, what was the male response to her? Because the shaming with a lot of the shaming of bigger girls cosplaying is dudes being trolls. My question is, like, the women were like, wow, a powerful woman, wow, she's big. Were the guys like, yeah, she's good? Or were the guys like, oh, what's with the big fat chick?
The guys that I watched the show with all went, wow, she's gorgeous.
A lot of
I don't know online.
A lot of them spiked into research on her first, and you started seeing a lot of how do the two relate, because people can't in their heads understand the Brienne that they've created on the screen versus a lot of her other shots outside of it. But overall, I've seen a lot of positive
My fiance was like, "Oh my God, rope my legs and call me Dogie."
I think we're going to put that in quotes on the poster.
But I mean, there has been negative, but no matter what you do, there's always going to be negative.
Right, so
Yeah.
more positive than negative. So that's a good step. That's a step in the right direction.
But then you hit this iconic for years and years and years woman who just took that giant leap we made forward and
But
went
she was-
5 steps back.
But she was she was 5 feet tall in the original. I mean, originally, if you want to go back to the origins of the character, originally she was the secretary for the Justice League. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying it's a thing. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to picture and imagine the body type that you're thinking would have been.
If you take a look at a lot of the really early, not entirely Wonder Woman, but designed by the same guy. If you look at his women, because it all started out in these kind of like weird kinky bondage comics, look at the proportion of the women to the proportion of the men. The women are Amazonian. They are as tall as, or almost as tall as, the men. They are more full-figured.
If we're going back that far,
Marilyn Monroe.
well, look at the costumes for the superheroes then. We're not doing tribute to those superheroes in the movies and those costumes, so why are we taking that what makes us say, we should take the 1950s Wonder Woman, but we're going to do a modern Batman? Where do you draw the lines? Why are you saying it's okay to put the woman in the freezer?
Well, I'm not saying that.
But
I'm saying, well, no, the new costume, from what I read, there's going to be 5 different costumes that are kind of going to be homages to all the different eras.
Well, one in
That
Buddha
part
thong.
really worries me. Like, that, honestly, that, I don't know, it really stuck in my craw hearing that, because that just, all of a sudden, that was one of my biggest beefs with it, because all of a sudden you take this character in a movie and you turn her into the Barbie doll.
and that's
Well,
what
they
they're
are
trying
trying
to
to
do.
sell
to her.
toys, too.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to be just a brash capitalist about it, but probably one of the reasons they did that was, I'm sure there's going to be a Wonder Woman Barbie when the movie comes out.
Yeah, but why the fuck didn't they do that with other male costumes? Why the fuck won't they do that where there's, 5 different costumes going through the different ones that correlated to the comic books? No.
Because men already buy action figures. The argument is they don't believe that women buy the merchandise, and they're coming up with a marketing scheme to make sure that women will buy the merchandise. However wrong-headed that may be, I can't say I don't
market
know,
research
but-
will show you that's not even true anymore.
Yeah.
It certainly was 20 years ago,
But that's
it's not now.
I read a really interesting article recently about that, about how part of the reason why there's not a whole lot of equity in lead female characters and lead male characters is because marketers believe, however right or however wrong, that women will not buy the merchandise. The men will buy the merchandise and the women won't. And so that's like, why should we prepare content for people who aren't going to buy the merchandise?
But it's a
to go with it?
catch-2 at the same, or a catch-22 at the same, because if you don't create it for us, we can't buy it.
Right.
So if you're sitting there saying, oh, well, we can't create a Wonder Woman solo movie because women won't go and see it, well, until you actually give us
it.
something that is not
right.
the Halle Berry Catwoman, that is actually worthwhile,
I like that movie.
that is
Kidding.
actually worthwhile, then you can't test that. You know what? DC's biggest mistake in this entire recent history was turning down Joss Whedon. The man can write strong females. You had him wanting to do Wonder Woman. What the hell were you thinking, saying, no, I'm sorry, we're going to pass?
No, not enough. Well, that comes into
I do give
what
him
I
props
bitched
for picking
about.
Jodie Picoult to write Wonder Woman, though, because that was smart.
What goes back to something I was saying last week about how the movie business right now, they're demanding such a high and quick turnover that a lot of movies that are in the middle are being cast aside. It's either like the horror movie that cost $5 million to make and it's going to make $100 million, or it's these super blockbusters that cost $200 million that have to make $600 million worldwide, or they're considered failures.
Lone Ranger.
Well, when you, I'm just listen. When you look at them doing the bathtub, awful movie.
Your math train just derailed.
Yeah,
And it blew up, and that's what cost $100 million of it. If you let me finish, can I finish? Vice President Al Gore, I will buy the strippers and cocaine in Las Vegas with my own money if you let me finish one point. No, but that's why they're
Promise?
looking at it that a lot of these movies that that might be big blockbusters, they go, okay, well, it's only going to probably make $500 million instead of $600 million. Then they're saying, well, yeah, but we're going to make this much on the merchandising. And with something like Wonder Woman, they're probably, as right-headed or wrong-headed, it's probably wrong-headed, where they're saying, well, we can do it for $180 million, maybe, probably $200 million, but what if the nerd boys don't go see it? Mm-hmm. Then, okay, you get all these girls who go see it, but then the nerd boys don't go see it, so then it only makes $300 million worldwide. So, well, we have to make sure that we're making merchandise that the girls will buy.
So they'll package it in pink and purple?
Oh, sure.
But unfortunately, that's not going to speak to a lot of the girls that want to go see the movie.
Yeah, and
honestly,
besides,
it's still guys
Grandma's
trying to
Boy?
tell us what we want.
Well, and
Anybody
until
see
you-
Grandma's Boy?
Yes.
Or is that it? Or yeah,
Grandma's Boy. Yeah.
yeah, with the scene in the bathroom.
But honestly,
The guys will buy the merchandise.
until you start creating toys to encourage the girls to buy said toys. You know what? There aren't enough action figures out there that if I had a daughter that I would want to go out and get her into action figures. Because if you don't have strong female action figures, I'm not saying that's the only kind. Shit, my child would have Thor and Iron Man. But I'm saying if you don't have the strong female characters out there, also for them, why are you going to give your child nothing but male action figures?
Oh, this leads to another point I wanted to make, if you don't mind. Sif, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I don't know if you've been watching it. It's getting better. Not quickly enough, but it's getting better. And 3 episodes, 3 weeks from now, maybe 4 weeks, Sif from the Thor movies is going to be their big guest star. And one of the things I like about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is the only interesting characters, and not many of them are very interesting, but the ones that are even a little bit interesting are the female characters. I mean, other than Coulson, who, you know, everybody, male and female that I know, loves Coulson.
I want to have coffee with him.
They
personally.
lost me at 3 weeks. That show lost me after 3 weeks.
See,
I haven't
that's
seen anything else.
I stuck with it, and I remember Mikey Wood and I, 4 months before it started, he was like, "This is gonna suck," and I was like, "No, it's not. It's gonna be great. Shut up, man. Shut up, man. It's gonna be great. Like, this is gonna suck. There's no way this is gonna be good at all."
For 3 hours.
And I tried so hard to like it, and it's like, you know, of course you have 22 episodes to get the story arc out, but I'm like, come on, Joss, Jed. I know Jed probably wrote most of it, but Jed, come on, get with it, man. You got to get people into it. And now, they're 12 episodes into it, and it's starting, just a kernel. So it's like a magic beam of awesome that they're like, oh, we're gonna plant it. Oh, we're gonna plant it. There's gonna be a big bang talk. It's gonna be awesome.
If they bring on Nathan Fillion for even one episode, I'd watch that.
You can watch him in anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is not a problem, right?
And no, who would he play?
Who cares?
Yeah.
Random passerby number 4.
He'd come in as a castle crossover, and I would be totally satisfied.
Captain
He's
Hammer.
writing an episode. Hey, superhero.
What?
The hammer is my penis.
They're bringing in Jamie Alexander, so you could have that Thor hammer crossover
Yeah.
reference there too.
This is going to be the first time I actually have to put sexual content in the cautions. Go women!
Honestly, I have found in my experience, you get a group of women together, we can put guys to shame with this kind
With
of stuff.
Ranch. Oh my god, yeah.
Yes.
Totally. That thing on Sex and the City where they show like women who get together just to watch gay porn, that totally happens.
Oh yeah. Actually, that
Well,
was
there are men who
always
do that too,
co-ed.
but it's
That
a
was
completely
always
different
co-ed
show.
groups whenever that would happen. And the best one ever was this creepy German porn on videotape that somebody found in one of my friend's closets. And you got about halfway through, and then there's this scene where it's like, you know, she's like stepping on the guy's head and telling him to lick her other boot, and all of a sudden it just gets really fuzzy. Because apparently that was the part he rewound and kept more.
Broke the pause button.
And the gentleman has never lived this down.
But yeah, you get a group of us together and it's all on.
Yeah.
So, should I leave? Should I...
That's why girls have things like Geek Girls Nights.
Yes.
So
To
we
watch
can,
porn.
so we can MST3K the sexual versions of the movies.
Yes.
Golf
I never get invited.
You have a
Girls
penis.
only.
Yeah, I like My Little Pony and ABBA.
No, you know what?
I
I
think
shouldn't have
that should
said
make me
that.
honorary.
When
Bitch, please.
I just said something totally wrong. I'm sorry about that. You said, why can't I be invited? I said, because you have a penis, but I remembered I have some transgender friends who identify as women and have penises, so that was not
Just
nice.
saying, Abba and My Little Pony. I should at least get an application for honorary membership.
Just saying, you're not going to want to sit there while we oogle Chris Hemsworth's butt.
Here's a secret.
It's all about the hair from your
Guys do too.
Smile, actually, but still.
Straight guys do too. Straight guys, yeah, I'm just saying. How could you not? The man's a Greek god.
Technically, he's Norse.
Okay. I was trying to make it less gay, but whatever. That's why it's funny, because it's Greek. Never mind. So anyway, what's our time at? How are we?
Ding topic bell.
135.
I'm feeling makes me feel vulnerable.
Plus, there's shit that needs cut.
I kind of like it. So who are your heroes, female heroes in nerd culture? The people that you think will bring us all to the next level, that will allow us to just live as equals and stop being such dicks to each other. Anybody?
Well, Felicia Day.
Obviously.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
like a no-brainer.
Obviously.
She is my hero.
Personally, I wouldn't really say she's part of geek culture, but my female idol is Amanda Palmer. She does everything herself. She tries all kinds of new stuff. She's utterly fearless, and she lives her life so openly and on social media and with her fans. I find it inspiring. It gives me a lot of courage to go out and try to do really scary things I haven't done before.
And she's got more balls than most men.
And she's married to Neil Gaiman, so
Right?
I guess that puts her like right in the middle of
How
geek
can you
culture.
lose with that one?
You know?
Can't.
Okay.
I've got a lot of respect for Nichelle Nichols because of the barriers that she broke back in the 1960s. It was really super important. But in terms of video games, I have a lot of female game designers who I really look up to. Sherry Grainer Ray, who was on the Ultima series. She works with me at Shell Games. She's awesome. Megan Geyser, who is the CEO of Her Interactive, who did all of those awesome Nancy Drew games for girls. Just these women who were okay with breaking out of the comfort zone and saying, what does a game look like that we make for girls? And they were willing to ask the question in an industry where that's not the easiest question to ask. So I have a lot of female game folks who are going out and doing amazing things.
Okay, we're going to come back to the I'm comic book geek, that kind of stuff. A lot of mine tend to be the strong female characters that do get written, especially in like the X-Men and Avengers universes. They have taken that risk of putting females in the lead, team leads, everything else. So characters like Miss Marvel. Come on, the woman was military, she came out, she's strong, she's powerful. Yeah, Rogue kind of changed that a little bit, but that's not the point. There has been strong female characters written for us. Wonder Woman, the ultimate
That
strong.
woman?
Exactly. So for me, it's about strong characters. And, well, this is completely Joss Whedon. Not a female, but that man knows how to write strong females. He empowered so many girls growing up to say, yes, I can do this.
He's like
Well,
the
we're not
Woody
gonna-
Allen of nerddom.
We're not going to make
In
any
writing
meaningful
women
change
well.
without male allies. I mean,
Right.
let's be very clear about that. Women cannot change things all by themselves. We need male allies to be willing to say,
Right, but there are standouts. That's what
Yeah, and he
I'm trying to
definitely
learn
is.
about
Yeah, exactly.
about women in the nerd culture that I don't know about.
And to me, he's such a standout because he's always stood for strong female characters. He's always made it about what female characters can I make, River, Zoe, Inara. She is so overlooked by so many people. The strength of that character is
I
just
actually got
astounding.
into a fight with Anita Sarkeesian about that one.
But, it's that kind of thing that we need more people out there writing those characters in comics, in games, in everything we do, because the only way to really have girls that can stand up to the nerd shaming, or can stand up for what they believe, or become game designers or comic book writers or anything like that is to have those strong role models. So every person out there, you know, that is doing that for us, to me, is a role model. Because we can do some of it ourselves, but as you just said, we need allies. You don't win wars like this on your own.
Although,
Right on.
as to becoming game designers, though, I ruin video games, so they probably shouldn't.
Julia?
I don't like this question. I don't actually think of role models in my life. You know, that's my problem is, you're talking about, like, Joss Whedon creates these women who are strong characters. It's not, like, there are plenty of people that I respect, but I don't really, the term role model just flummoxes me.
Okay,
Because
how about, wait. How about instead of role model, you say, who are the women that you think are significantly changing the perception of women in nerd culture in a good way?
Or who inspired you.
Right. Not that you're
Inspirations.
like trying to be like them, or this is my role model, the way like a little kid might say, like Michael Jordan is my role model. But who do you think within the nerd culture is advancing women as equals within the culture?
Again, I see things more from the roots up. It's, like, I have a really hard time actually putting that into any sort of context, because everything I see is just, you know, you find that group of fans who comes together and they all have their different inspirations. You know, this one thing this one person said at some point that made them realize that, you know, hey, wait a second, maybe I do look at the thick girl who's cosplaying in a skin-tight outfit, and instead of seeing somebody who loves that superhero, I see a land whale. And they start thinking differently and say something to one of their friends. And it's like, I look at these things more from the fandom. Because it's like, you can emulate anybody the fuck you want to. You can look up to anybody the fuck you want to. If you can't find a way to actually talk to your peers, all that is just putting an idol on a shelf, putting an action figure in the man cave.
Okay, well, my answer was going to be Felicia Day because of the Guild. Because it was the first time in nerd culture that I saw where they actually showed female gamers. Before that, female gamers were just
Mythical
the
creatures?
thick chick with the thick glasses in the corner that was a punchline. Whereas in that, it kind of exposed a lot of male nerds like, oh shit, yeah, there are people who do that. And look, they're good looking and have lives too. I think that was a really big deal and very significant in the evolution of nerd culture.
I agree, but I think that one cut both ways, because I think for a lot of guys it wasn't, hey, here's a female gamer. It was, oh, she's hot. Mm-hmm. You know, she was objectified immediately, and that gave them bigger reason to objectify her, the fact that she played games. So while I think she's amazing, and I'm glad that she's a positive representative of female gamers, there's a way in which that, you know, it didn't work all that well, and that's because, you know, you have the male supremacist website saying, oh, well, Felicia Day's amazing because she's a hot gamer chick, and it shouldn't have to do with whether we're hot.
You talk about going back to the roots, though, but for that, what I'm saying is there are things that are happening within nerd media because of that.
Yes.
And it was very successful, and they got it on Netflix, and they sold a bunch of DVDs, and made a lot of money going to con, which allowed her to put money into Geek and Sundry, along with the grants that she got for them to create all of this content. But for the Guild, I don't think a lot of that would have happened. That's why I think it's significant, and that was the tenor of what my question was. So yeah, I take your point and I understand it, but I still think that it was one of the most significant.
Oh, I'm not debating its significance. I'm just saying that there were things that came with it, you know.
But I think that's anything for females in the geek culture.
Yeah.
It's always, it's like...
I think we have to evaluate
Females
it
in
based on what it
culture.
does for us.
Right.
And not what guys are getting out of it, because they're not all going to get the same
It's the
thing.
same
we
thing
are.
with, like, the cosplay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're getting objectified because you're running around in corsets and stuff like that. But you know what? If at the end of the day you enjoy it, you feel good about it, then screw the trolls. they're always going to find something to objectify or tear down because
Part
it
of the
makes
reason
them
they're
feel better.
mad, though, is because you won't screw the trolls. That's why they hate on you, because you won't screw them.
Well, maybe then, if it were me, which of course it's not, I'd punch him in the dick and say, you know what? I'm a girl, and I like the same stuff you would do. And if you weren't such a dick, I might actually sit down and have a cup of coffee with you, and you wouldn't be all alone all the time.
But the problem is, so much of this happens behind the anonymity of the internet.
Yes.
If they won't say it to your face, so you can't punch them in the dick.
Yeah, the guy who wrote that article about me was hiding behind an alias. He wrote the article anonymously. It was hurtful, it was awful, and he did it anonymously. And all of the commenters who said those really hurtful things too, they were all anonymous too.
So that's where we're fighting
again,
that battle.
Being kind of on the other side of things at conventions, because I'm always behind a table, I'm hearing what people 5 feet behind the cosplayer are saying. Mm-hmm. And it's totally different from what they're saying in front of the cosplayer. And a lot of it is hurtful and mean.
Do you think that YouTube's new thing is a good idea? They have a new thing on YouTube that you can no longer anonymously post comments on videos. Like, it comes up as you.
It's not going to change, though, because it's still
anonymity.
It's
really
just
not
because
that hard
there's
to
a
make a
name,
proxy to.
And just because there's a name doesn't mean
They're not going to say it.
there's some. Well, and there's no, there's no way to challenge that person.
Well, but no,
Yeah, and I mean-
then you
and I
know
mean,
their actual name and can go.
But no,
and people can
'cause-
go to their shit and be
No,
like,
but
you're a dick.
the thing is, try to find me online, because you aren't going to find me by my first and last name anywhere. You are not going to find me by my first and last name anywhere. There are some sites where if I want some people to know who I am...
Do you have Gmail? It's going to come up as the name
But I
that
can
you
create-
have your Gmail
I have
account.
5 Gmail
not
accounts.
Not your Gmail account name,
honey,
your
the-
name.
But you
I
can
have-
create a Gmail
Yeah.
account with any name you want.
Yeah,
Yeah,
could
I
right
had a
now go
Gmail
online
account
and
for a
post-
while. The name on it was The Duke of Dork. Like, that was the
Yeah,
legitimate
like-
first
like
and last.
right now
That was
with
one of the ones I
logins,
used
I
for
could
all
go
the
in
shit.
and post as Peter Beagle because I run an account for him with a Gmail account. So I can just post under his name.
Okay, so it's not perfect, but you don't think it helps at all? You
No.
don't think it stops any trolling?
It's still anonymous.
Honey,
Whether you have a name
trolls,
or not.
trolls have been working around this shit on website upon
Yeah.
website upon websites for as long as I've been using
And
it.
whether-
Okay, then why do anything? Why try?
I think just you don't read the comments.
Yeah,
I mean,
you don't
that's-
feed the trolls
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
by commenting and getting upset about it. You're just feeding into that need for power.
I don't think
My-
it helps.
my
I
only-
think that what does help is just ignoring it.
Exactly.
My only point is,
No, I don't
and I've
agree
read
with
some
that.
things that support this a bit, that there are less trolls now because instead of having just something that's anonymous, if you're on that and you're using your own account, and supposedly they're going to go through too, and if somebody goes, hey, this looks like an anonymous account, they're going to go verify it, and if is somebody doing that, they're going to kick them off.
That I think might make a
Yeah.
difference.
That's the fear of that, and the fear of that if you're using your own YouTube account, that is your own name, the one that you use all the time, then you are no longer anonymous. So maybe you self-censor just a little bit. Maybe you don't go fake and fat and gay. Maybe you just go fake and gay, because you don't want to be seen as you as an actual human being, as opposed to your web persona. Don't want to be seen as an actual asshole.
I don't know. I really struggled, like, when that article came out about me, I struggled very hard with how to respond to it or whether to respond to it. I had a lot of folks telling me that I should just ignore it, but the problem I had with ignoring it was ignoring it, at least the way it felt to me, it felt like ignoring it was tantamount to condoning it.
Silent consent.
Yeah, which I don't. But in the end, the battle on that particular website was never going to, because of the whole feeding the trolls problem. And so I struggled with that a lot. I got a lot of different opinions from, people at work and people in the industry, some of whom said, yes, you should fight back and you should do this, that, and the other thing. And other people saying, you know what, I eat trolls for breakfast and I wouldn't dream of taking this particular fight. And it killed me to do it, but I did end up walking away from it. But I was not happy with that, because it felt very much to me as though ignoring it is allowing it to happen. It's like, if I don't say anything, it's kind of like, okay, it's okay with me because I didn't object.
The only thing that I could think of, like, whenever I read it, I didn't actually want to respond via comments or anything, but what I wanted to do was write an over-the-top satirical piece of how women are ruining the workplace.
There's a new
And post that as a link.
There's a new anthology coming out called Women Have Ruined Science Fiction. Because of there was a huge letter written a few months ago about how women writing science fiction have ruined science fiction. So yeah,
I read that article.
A bunch of people got together and decided to put out a whole anthology.
Well, one of the specific things they said in the article, like, if it was up to this woman, she would be designing games about a one-legged Eskimo in a polyamorous relationship. My immediate thing was, man, I want to go make a game like that now.
Yeah, right? I'd play that just to stick it to him.
Yeah, I actually had a game design. I have the design, but in the end, I just decided, because my child got involved. My child read the article, and my child
That's why I
posted
think
it.
every little bit helps.
He posted a comment identifying himself as my son, and then they turned on him. So the point at which it was no longer about me, but could hurt my child, I had to walk away from it at that point. But make no mistake, if you have any listeners out there who are interested in collaborating on a game about a...
Bisexual, one-legged Eskimo in a polyamorous relationship?
No, she's polyamorous. She is an Inuit, not an Eskimo. And,
Oh, pardon me. Right.
But yes, I have the design.
Is she one-legged?
Yes.
Awesome!
She got into a fight with a polar bear. The polar bear attacked the village, and she survived a polar bear attack when she was 5. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. It was very therapeutic for me to design that game.
So you heard it here first. What? And what's the title? Getting Inuit? Get it? Getting into it?
Oh, God.
I'm gonna go smoke a cigarette now.
You could call it Hungry at the Comics.
Well, you can post in the comments. You can reach us at thenerdexchange@gmail.com. Become a member of Nerd Exchange of Western Pennsylvania if you like. Check out the Nerd Exchange podcast page on Facebook. And where else can they put angry comments telling me to shut up? I think that's about it. But I'd love...
Dick Cheney's email address on hand?
We're going to put Dick Cheney's email in the comments. I'd like to thank our panel. I think, what did we learn today? People need to stop being dicks.
It's
And
okay
women
to
like
have-
talking about dicks.
And dicks are good, but bad.
So, basically, what we got from the all-women episode is penis.
Yes.
I didn't say it. But anyway, for Nerd Exchange Podcast, I'm your resident brony, Tim Sedwick. I'd like to thank my guests, Chris Rickert, Laurie Comfort, and Heidi MacDonald. And of course, as always, the fine and illustrious producer, Julia Englert, for this great discussion. So, guys, live what you love, learn something new every day, and we'll talk to you next week.
Penis.
Why do I see the little grr arm turning into the end of all the videos now?
Penis!
Exactly.
Vagina. It's the French for nice. Getting into it.
No. Just, no.
That was good.
No,
No.
not really.
No.
Not at all.
But it was bad in a good way.
No, it was bad in a bad way.
Ponies.